everyone. Welcome to another episode of Live Boldly with Sarah. I am in my parents' basement again. You can always tell because of the fish, which Lisa knew it was a walleye. I was like, dang, girl, we're already connecting. So thank you for the both of you, Cameron and Lisa, for jumping into this episode. We're going to be diving straight into business, success, all things women, entrepreneurship, and this is exciting. I'm stoked to be on this because I'm sure I'm going to learn a few things right now too. So thank you for being here, first of all.
Yeah, so excited to be here too.
It's going to be fun. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background, what got you into this, a little bit about what is the driving force behind the work that you are also doing today?
I'm Lisa Bradley, and Cameron's other half. And really a long journey of growing up and seeing things in a certain way. My parents were entrepreneurs. I grew up in Montana. I did a lot of different random jobs. I worked for Montana Fish and Wildlife, which is why I know that's a walleye on your wall. But always knew that I wanted to start my own business. But then when I met my husband and quickly moved 4 times in 4 years, I knew that was going to be really difficult to do. And I'd have to create a business model that worked around all those moves. But really why we living purposely and fully, resonates so well with what we do, because every time I moved, I really felt like I was losing my identity. It was new group of friends, new doctors, new community, new work. And a lot of times we get our sense of purpose and our identity through the work we do every day. And it doesn't need to be paid work. It can be volunteer. It's the thing that you put out in the world that you do. And many times I was a label on, I was Captain Bradley's wife or so-and-so's mom. And I wanted to be able to have an identity for myself. And so not only being able to create that for ourselves, but for other women was really what started our business model.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm Cameron Cruse. I'm the other half of this operation, this 2-bag lady operation. In so many ways, Lisa and I grew up very different. We're opposites. We bring like a yin and a yang to the table. So I grew up in Atlanta. I went and got my degree in architecture. I was so pumped about what that was going to look like, like that 9 to 5, had the new wardrobe, had the student loans and the brand new, have my degrees up here on the wall, and met my husband who's in the military, and we moved from the beautiful Savannah, Georgia, to the middle of nowhere. And that was like screeching halt on all of my dreams. I didn't know what I was going to do, having this quarter life crisis. And then I met Lisa, and she was going through the exact same thing. So we decided right then and there that we were going to do something about it. And we weren't just going to kind of lay down and let this life happen to us. We were going to kind of take control and really try to develop and build something that worked not just for us, but for our whole community. So we jumped right in and started a bag company.
Why not?
Right.
Why not?
The most saturated industry in the world. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Hey, I love a good bag. Okay. So I will search for a good bag. So there's always space. I think that's actually really important to understand too, is that there is space even in a market that seems saturated, because it's not so much about the object as it is the quality, right? And the meaning behind it. Yes. So tell us a little bit about the company that you have.
Well, I think we knew we wanted to help military spouses be able to have that purpose, and be able to have something for yourself. I remember when I was first married, they kept referring to me as a dependent, and that was referring to spouses and children. I was like, that's the strangest word to give to a community of people, attached to the military. But after move, I really did start to feel very dependent, and wanted to be able to have that thing that was for myself. And again, it didn't need to be paid. It didn't need to be, it just really needed to be a purpose. And if you read about it a lot, like the sense of purpose helps people live longer. There's a lot to that. And so we started when we were just running buddies, actually, we started talking about the things that were really difficult in our daily lives. And employment was a big one of those. We thought military spouses are so talented. They have so much grit because they have to move so frequently that somebody needs to do something about helping them. And so we built a business model around the idea of a distributed manufacturing model where they can make the parts and pieces to our handbag line from home. At first it wasn't handbags. It needed to be something that could carry this very important story. And being able to pick up a handbag every day, it's not like clothing that you switch it out every day. You you choose a bag, you usually use it every day. And that's why we wanted to go with a product that you want to have as your partner each day.
Yeah. We were running, but we were doing all the things that unemployed people do, right? We were running, we were working out like all the time. We were day drinking. We were dreaming about what we could do and what we could be and like complaining about everything. And then we decided to jump right in. And I'll never forget everybody around us, our husbands especially, were like, that's so fun. You guys have fun doing that, fill your time. It's cute. And then we put our sewing machine, our first sewing machine, on a credit card, and everybody around us is going, "Oh God, are you guys sure? Like, we should talk about this." Because now
real fast
together. Like now we're inextricably linked. Like we have this thing that we can't, you can't separate the two of us. So I think
that together.
Got everybody's attention.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And so then you start making these. You buy yourself a sewing machine on a credit card. By the way, I just have to state, one of my business ideas came from running too. And it was on a bracelet that I was wearing, and it said, "Love life, live boldly." And, or no, it said something like that. It had the word bold in it. And that became one of the things that, it's part of my tagline, live boldly. Yeah. So it happens.
And you have to completely jump off that cliff and just.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah. And that's what we did. We found the one place that we didn't have to pay rent, which was neither of our husband's garage. It was actually an attic above the garage, which was the only open space. And so you should have seen us take, like a pulley system to get that industrial sewing machine that was probably 150 pounds up that attic ladder. But we set up shop and made 5 bags to make 7, and then 7 to make 20. And I got fired from sewing really early on. There's these key moments in the beginning of your business where you find what you're supposed to be doing and not doing. So I think you think that starting a business is really glorious and definitely Instagram perfect, but it's not. Those early days, you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And you're also, if you have a co-founder, you're figuring out how to work with each other. Those were some of the best days. And we still have versions of that even today as we grow.
Yeah, for sure. One day or evening, multiple evenings in a row, I'll distinctly remember is we're planning the launch of this riveter.com website. So we decided we're going all in. We learned how to take credit card payments at these shows. Like we learned that we were going to put our website up and have our e-commerce. And we thought, once we turn it on, once we go live, like the orders will come. Like we're so excited. So we stay up for like multiple days on end trying to get these bags done so we could at least have 5 to 10, items to sell and inventory. And the day comes, the shop goes live, and nothing happens. There's no sales. Lisa, do you remember this? And so we're going, okay, well, I guess we need to go. I guess we need to like step out of the attic and go get in front of people and go to these markets. We would go to any market that would take us, any farmer's market, any small art show, anything where we could have a table and put bags on it. We would show up and we would just be handing cards and taking custom bag orders and just figuring out what made our customers tick. And that was our first realization that nothing is going to come easy. You're going to have to work for all of this.
You just said something that's what makes our customers tick.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the thing that you found out the most about your customers? What was the most interesting thing that you found out, or the most surprising?
I think that they really resonated with that re-identifying of ourselves, and that we weren't just talking about it. We were out there doing it ourselves. We were underneath a tent in a farmer's market, with 7 bags that we made, and stayed up until 2:00 in the morning. We went from coffee to basically beer, making these products. And they look like that. We still have a couple of the first prototypes, one sitting actually behind me, and you grow from it. And I think they really just resonated that we were out there doing it, and that whether you're military or maybe you're a family that's had to move for work, or you've had to basically move your life and re-identify yourself, that's what really resonated with our customers really in the beginning, even when our product wasn't at 100%. It was the idea.
That was the messaging part, right? Which really was helpful. And then there's little key things that you'd pick up, like, oh, I wish there was a pocket here. Or when they would touch the product. Like if you have a physical product, should always be with it in front of people, watching them interact with it. And so us being able to watch them even at a very small scale early on, I wish this had a strap. I wish it had a pocket. I wish it had a handle here. Why does it look like that? So you would almost get to experience those first couple prototypes, and we would very rapidly and very quickly adapt, and evolve their product so that we could provide the best thing for our customers.
You mentioned about identity quite a bit because, and I talk about this in my speaking engagement, how for so long in my life, and I'm sure many people listening to this will relate to this, and I'm curious if you both do, where you felt like you were in the shadows of others and your gift wasn't being used. And you knew that there was a gift there, but you're even like, I'm not even sure what my gift is, which is, equal to also my purpose. How much did that play into the creation, the product, and how did that change or transform over time as you stepped out of the shadow, as I'm going to call it, or you stepped into your identity?
Oh man. I mean, I just remember feeling like, that quarter life crisis feeling was such a eye-opening experience for me. I had this thing that I thought I was going to be, this person, this career that I thought I was going to have. And then I would spend all day long at home waiting for my husband to come home and not really knowing what to do with that time in between. I was really lost. Like I wasn't even being the best stay-at-home mom or house, I wasn't even managing my house as best I could. I was just lost because I didn't feel like that was my purpose. I wanted to create something. I wanted to build something. So it didn't even feel like I was intentionally stepping out of the shadows or into the light or anything like that. It just felt like I was exploring a way into feeling like my days mattered. And once they did start to matter, and I'll tell you, it mattered more when there were more people involved. For me, it's very much about community. So Lisa and I found this partnership and we're exploring this together. And then we would bring in other military spouses and they would see the light in some way too. That was really like when I truly felt like we were making a difference.
Part of my identity is helping other people find theirs too. And that's what fills me. I think that each individual person has a different idea of what is fulfilling versus taking away from them. So for us to be able to create a business model and then see that light in other people was really what was also filling a light in me. And I remember a specific time where she was a riveter with us from the very beginning days. A riveter is a person or a military spouse that helps create the parts and pieces from home. And then she actually transitioned into being a bookkeeper and then our office manager. But she said one of the most key turning points for her was her son said, Mom, I heard you on a phone call the other day. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. I had a completely different view of your background and your skill sets, and being able to hear you on phone calls from home really was important to me. And that was, back before 2020 when everybody was working from home. It was really the moment of, women can have a career and a family too. And I'm in the generation where that idea was still blooming, now I think it's pretty common to have a 2-income family, and the roles are shared amongst both heads of the household. But I was really raised in a time frame where those duties were really split, and we were still trying to figure out what that looked like. So I was very proud that I got to be part of that transition for other people as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How, when you first started, so it's first started with the two of you, how many do you have working now? How big is this?
So we went from just the two of us, figuring it out in the very beginning stages. And then when it got too much for the two of us, and that was the first time that we're like, hey, we need help. And of course you go to your community right next to you. And so that's actually one of the first people was the gal I was just talking about. She has the coolest Riveter number. It's RR007. So she gets to be 007, which I think everybody wants that number.
Wow.
But, and then it steadily grew, and we're at about 3-5 remote riveters who take place in participating with the production of our products. But we have almost 42 employees too, which is really great to say that we've been able to create, 42 American jobs, which, I think we need more here inside of our own country and being able to give back to our own economy.
Okay. And you were on Shark Tank. Let's talk about that experience. Please.
Yeah, that's our claim to fame. It almost didn't feel real. You know, what's funny about it is we didn't think it was real. We got a call
Really?
essentially inviting us to pitch to Shark Tank, and we were like, yeah, whatever, it's a lie, but we'll call them back. But we know it's not real. And then it was real, so we were like, oh God. And I remember Lisa and I having this conversation where we were kind of like, nope, we're not going to do that. Like, that's insane. We're not going to get up there and pretend like we have any idea what we're doing, you know? And then Lisa said, she's like, I think we should do it. Like, I don't want to be an old lady sitting in the rocking chair, wondering what would have happened if we said yes. And so we were like, oh God, okay, here we go. So we committed and we went into the tank.
And there's always like a phase in growing that I feel like you should, you know, it's a yes day for business. You know, like there's a phase of your growing your business where you need to just say yes and figure it out. And then there's a phase where you need to be a little bit more strategic and stop saying yes so much. But we're glad that we, you know, took the plunge into the tank. It was one of the best things we ever did, not only just because we got a deal out of it, but really because it made us stop and say, if we're going to go on national television in front of the whole entire country and in front of the best business leaders, we need to have our stuff together. And so we really stopped all operations to at least Cameron and I, and really said, no, team, you need to take care of this. We're going to prep ourselves for this. And that forcing us to stop and look backwards to be able to really plan for the future was one of the most pivotal times of our company.
What has been the most shocking or the most surprising thing that you have learned about becoming entrepreneurs, especially as women, moms, partners, you know, really going through this identity space?
I guess it's really like everything that we didn't know before. It really gives you this perspective, and I feel like we level up like every month of every year. The perspective gets like smaller and smaller. We realize how much there is to know, how much there's to learn. You know, I think before entrepreneurship, before opening up to the idea of being a business owner, my scope was really small. And so I really didn't understand what made the world, you know, go around. I didn't know what made the world tick. And so now I have a larger, you know, understanding of that. I have still very small in comparison to most, you know, but for me, it was like, wow, I didn't know how all of this operated. I didn't know how all this worked. And feeling like I'm learning something new every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd second that. Like, perspective is everything, and attitude. So I feel like as a military spouse, we got a really unique perspective of life, you know, from being constantly worried about your spouse that's overseas to like really knowing what really matters, to growing a business. You know, you actually get a look underneath the hood and you appreciate what people have done before you. And so much more of a finite matter, just because you've now lived it and you know what it takes to put something to market. And so that perspective helps me every day approach daily life differently.
Okay, but how did you not get afraid going on Shark Tank?
Like,
that's like, I really want to like, because I know for me, I mean, I've done national TV, and it's nerve-wracking. You know, and you're literally putting your product, your story, and everything out there.
When I was having a down moment where I didn't think we could do it, Cameron was like, "We got this. It's going to be totally fine." And then it would flip flop the next day, and I don't know what would have happened if we had a down day together. But it was really just each other rooting each other on for a bigger picture. And the biggest thing that we wanted to be able to do is be able to take this brand and for it to be known, really in a household way. I think the coolest thing now is literally going to the airport or going to a grocery store and seeing one of your bags that you created, you know, from a little seed of hope back in 2011. And so like, that's the part that makes it all worth it, is that we're now seeing our handbags from a little idea of being able to help people. And then knowing that individual bought that bag for a reason, being able to put that on her arm, knowing that she has a whole community of people behind her. That's what we always wanted to be able to do, and to be able to make that reach.
Yeah. And we definitely, those negative thoughts always crept in, or at least they started to, right? And like Lisa said, I would have a moment and she'd be like, we're fine. And then she would have a moment and I'd remind her, we've got this. But what really pushed us in and made us successful in the tank was the preparation. So we did so many hours of research. We did so many mock tanks, practicing talking about, our business, answering questions in front of people that were smarter than us, that were going to give us a hard time and not going to let us just, answer a question and move on. We actually did a mock tank and we totally bombed it. And nobody in the mock Shark Tank would have invested us. So we really took that as like an eye-opening experience, and we practiced and practiced and practiced. And we knew all of our numbers and we knew everything that we could going into that. So not only did we have, the hours of preparation, but then we had each other to like pick each of us up when we were kind of getting down. Like when we got to California to go into the tank, we had a moment in the hotel room where Lisa was like, we shouldn't do this. I don't know what we're doing. Like we've flown all the way out to California, and Lisa's like, we gotta bail. And then I'm like, no, stop that. Just get a good night's sleep and we'll be fine. And then we're like walking into the tank where they open the Shark Tank doors. And Lisa looks at me and she goes, okay, I'm fine. And I'm like, I don't know what my name is right now. Like, how are you fine? What?
And it really is that preparation. It really is that preparation, because we, like Cameron said, we went into a mock tank and they said at the end, anybody raise your hand that will invest in this company, and nobody raised their hand. And we're like, we're literally flying in 2 weeks to go on national television, telling them every business decision we've ever made. And luckily we took that to heart and we completely redid our whole entire numbers. But I had to rememorize all that, and that was the fear. So I had up until that morning to rememorize everything. So
yeah.
Listen, I'm as a speaker myself, I totally get this. I mean, 2 weeks prior to an engagement that I just did on Tuesday, I stripped down my entire speech because I had gone through this experience where I was like, okay, much like yours, it wasn't, I didn't share my speech with anybody. It wasn't that. It was the inspiration was so different, having gone through this experience 2 weeks prior to my keynote, that I was like, wow, this isn't this. I need to shift the message. Like, this is where I want to dive in with this. And so I think, I know for myself, it's not even that I think, I know that, we are presented with times like this to really up level us, right? To allow us to rise into that next space and to step further into our own purpose. And that's what you did. As scary as it is, as it is.
I can definitely go back to the times where we're most comfortable and we feel like we've got, a handle on things. That's really when things are slipping. And I know that like right around the corner, we're going to have a big wake up call. And it's actually when things are hard and you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose that you're like, okay, we're actually making progress. And I know that this is worth the hard work, and then being able to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, like your husband being the person doing the mock tanks. He was the hardest shark that Cameron and I went up against. And that was a really difficult time, but it was worth it. He really helped us prepare, and the mock tank really helped us prepare. And I think that the fact that we did that much prep work was really why we were so successful in the tank.
Yeah, preparation's key for anything. I mean, you have to have yourself ready to go before you step into anything like that. Have you ever heard the whole thing about that the courageous step is what builds the confidence, which is then what shuts down the self-doubt?
That's so true. Yeah.
Like we've lived that a couple times over. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to just be courageous enough to take that step in order to build the confidence. The self-doubt creeps in. It creeped in how many times, right?
For sure.
But, and having the confidence to overcome that is what gets you to that next space. That's so freaking cool.
Sometimes I think we take it a little bit too far. Some of the things that we've been working on with contractors and whatnot, they're like, you guys have almost too many systems, too many things locked down. And that's actually one of the things that, like, what is surprising on this side of really growing a company is like, what do you put your energy into? And we've been really good about putting systems in place and being able to track things and being able to really practice like we play. But there's also a time frame where you've just got to go, and everything can't be at 100% to move forward. So you definitely have to flex those two muscles to really grow a company. And an entrepreneur knowing when to flex those is really what makes you successful or not.
You mean flex in terms of your creativity, or just getting
flex in
out there?
How far does this need? Does this need to be at 100% in order to move forward, or does it need to be good enough to be able to keep everybody moving forward? And I think those were some of the things that I've struggled with most, as moving from the creator, Cameron and I, moving from the creator of the business to managing the business, because many entrepreneurs are very creative and they like to start things, but then going into more of the management phase of the business it's quite a shift for a lot of entrepreneurs. And that's the part that's been kind of most surprising to me, is when do you launch something with speed or with perfection?
Okay, so going back to Shark Tank, because I want to, I can't even imagine the pressure in that while you were there. Like, the pressure while you were there must have been incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's the pressure leading in was palatable, but I feel like once you get in there, get on that stage, and you start to have those conversations, it just becomes that routine. Whatever you've practiced and made permanent, it just flows. Like, we weren't trying to be somebody that, we weren't being imposters. And that really helped with not only the authenticity of our pitch, but I think the sharks, and anybody, they can see through somebody who's not truly authentic and not, being, living in their own way. And that's just who we were. And we knew we had to kind of live and be comfortable in that space.
And you ended up building out from that. So what was that like for you when I know this is just like a crazy, silly question, but to actually know that you had people investing in you, how was it for you when you left there?
I think it gave us the credibility that we're looking for. Is, once they put their stamp of approval on it, it was like, okay, we're not crazy. Buying that sewing machine was a good idea, husband. And it just kind of what gave us, the credibility in an industry that is really saturated, right? But then, that was really where the work began. We were in back order for 6 months after that, and being able to really work with our customers to know that they're waiting on something that's worth it. We live in a society where we don't have delayed gratification anymore. I even look at my kids who, we order something and then they stand outside and waiting for it to come in the mail almost hours later, and they're not getting that feeling of what it felt like to have to wait for something. Like back in the old days when you get a CD, you're going to the store and you have to wait for that thing. And sometimes it makes you actually appreciate it more. And much like that with our handbags, they're going across the country and back for a purpose. And the one thing I'll say about the Shark Tank process was our customers were so patient, and they actually appreciated that each one of those items were being handmade across the country, and they got that and waited. That meant a lot to us. When we were scaling a company, we sold more in one night than we did the whole previous year. So taking a little company like that and being able to scale those operations is not an easy task.
Wow. You sold more in one night than you had the entire year.
Right. Yeah.
Dang. That's amazing.
The other piece of that, not only just being ourselves, but we were in constant communication with our customers. So they were definitely willing to wait, but we were saying, your order's on the way. Like, here's where it is. We just sent it to our Riveter in Ohio, so we didn't just say, hey guys, it's going to be a while. And we went dark. We said, it's going to be a while, but trust us, it's worth it. And then we would let them know at every stage, their bag is coming, their bag is on the way. It's in process. It's going back to our facility.
Let me ask you, was there any part of you, a younger version of you, that helped you with this process of stepping into the space of being an entrepreneur? Younger version creative, younger version young girl, where you were like, I remember being a little girl loving handbags, or what younger version of you helped you as a woman today?
I mean, growing up in Montana and being surrounded by people that have to fix things in the middle of nowhere and not calling somebody to come and fix it, problem solving and figuring out how to do that really helped me. My parents were entrepreneurs, so I knew the ups and downs of an entrepreneur's life. It wasn't a time clock, you punch 8 to 5, and then you got the rest of the evening to your family. So I knew that, if my parents were working late into the hours, I knew that they were doing that for the betterment of my family. So that really helped prepare the mindset of growing a business. And then, like I said, just that lifestyle of, if you're gonna fix it, you're gonna have to do it. You're not gonna ask somebody else for help or pay somebody else to do it. You need to figure it out. And that really helped me in the mindset.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I always wanted to build something. I loved the idea of going to art school, but I didn't want to be a starving artist. So and my dad grew up, he had a small construction company. I worked for him during the summer. So it was like, I want to do something with my hands and I want to do something that matters. So getting a master's in architecture felt like the best option for me. I loved how it brought like two worlds together. And so having that like design background and like the project management and the planning, there's a lot that translates from architecture to fashion or fashion accessories. So that helps. I always like love the idea of building and designing things. And then where I think Lisa and I come together is we have this almost like this brand archetype of the explorer, with like a little rebel, and like, and then Lisa's got, that entrepreneurship and that sort of discipline entrepreneurship background. So us bringing that explorer archetype, of our interests in life together really helped start, our Riveter.
Have you had to move quite a bit since then? How was that? Are you,
Yeah.
because you're not near each other, right?
Yeah, we were together for 8 to 9 months when I made my first move, and then I've made an additional 12 after that. So I moved a lot, and definitely was very fortunate to have a employment opportunity that I was able to move. So I definitely utilized our own purpose a lot, and Kimberly was a little bit more fortunate. It wasn't quite as much, but we were fortunate to have her a little bit more stable. With their particular military experience. And that's the thing about military spouses, is it's so widely from one to the other. It can be moving all the time, or even just what a military spouse needs to be able to do is pick up and drop something at the drop of a hat because your kid's sick, or if your spouse is gone, that's what you have to do. You're the primary parent. So being able to provide that flexibility was really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard starting a business.
Yeah,
being an entrepreneur. I mean, I get it. I didn't set out to do any of it, but there was a call, it's like literally I call it, it's like a call from your heart and your soul of like, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. And I think so often we fight it, right? Where it's like, no, can't do that. Don't just, that wonderful saboteur or inner critic can be very, very powerful at times to not do something.
Right. Yeah. Like every time that you do, it's a little bit easier though. Like the first time you jump off a cliff, it's very scary. But then the next time you bring a parachute, and then the next time, you've got a nice little pool at the bottom of the cliff. So it's like every time you've created something new, or you've put yourself out there, you're equipping yourself with more tools to make that jump easier. So I think that it's the very first one that's so hard.
What would you tell yourself today if you were starting this over, doing this again, what would you tell yourself today?
There's so many lessons, but I think the one that for me is the main thread is to trust yourself more. So like I firmly believe that the entrepreneur is like the flavor of the dish, right? So the entrepreneur is the thing that's driving, that has the vision. So trust your vision, trust your gut, but find people that have done this before for 30 years and learn from them immediately. So like Lisa and I had never done anything like this before. So we jumped into this manufacturing, retail, handbag, fashion world. And I'd never had a real job other than like babysitting and working for my dad. And, I folded towels one summer at a gym. So like I had never even had a real job. And so we were learning so much, and it would have been interesting to see how much further and faster we could have gone if we had engaged people with experience earlier than we did.
Mm.
I think it's like, and it's that mindset of, you can do it yourself. You can figure it out. I don't know how many things I've Googled. If you could just see my Google history, you'd probably see most of the way that we do things at our Riveter, because we're just figuring it out. But like there's the two pendulums. You can be more risk adverse and not fund your company at such a greater level and try and figure it out yourself, or you can put the risk in and fund it in another way and be able to bring in someone that's been doing it and can implement quickly. And I think that speed component is really important. And you have to make that decision as an entrepreneur. How fast do you want to go, or how risk adverse do you want to go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
Where do you think you would be if you hadn't gone on Shark Tank? I'm just curious.
I think it was the speed component, right? It gave us not only a great, funding to be able to move forward, but also it was also a marketing channel, because we were able to tell our story on a national platform. So we went a lot faster from it. I think we would still be here, but it was that we would have taken more of that risk adverse route,
right?
Where it would have taken a lot longer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was risky, like Shark Tank either makes or breaks companies. So it was definitely, we took the risk for the reward, and we're really glad we did.
What's the most surprising thing that you found out about yourself, just like you, about who you are as a woman by going down this road?
I think that for me, I remember a time frame where even public speaking was so terrifying for me. I could hear my blood pumping in my ears. It was so much anxiety.
Hey, listen, girl, I get it. I'm finally like, I can, before I go up there, I'm not like shaking in my boots.
Right, exactly. And then our first news appearance, that was before Shark Tank. It was so terrifying. And I was just thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. So being an entrepreneur, you find that there's these walls where you're like, I can't do it. I can't even see myself doing it. But then when you put yourself out there and you get through it, you're like, that wasn't so bad. Mm-hmm. And the next time you have that self-doubt, again, it's easier because you did it. You got through it once. So whatever hurdle that is, being able to just take the leap of faith and doing it is the best thing that you can do for yourself, and also for your family and the people around you too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Oh man, I think I've learned how to, the most surprising thing, and it goes back to that, risk adverse thing, doing it yourself, kind of going slow and being very methodical and doing it all yourself. I've now learned, and I learned a lot from Lisa, because she loves to open up to people and get out there, put herself out there, and she's a great extrovert. So I'm a learned extrovert, and I have very introverted tendencies. So this has helped me come out of that shell and learn how to interact with people and work with people, brainstorm with people, and grow with people. Because otherwise I would have just done it all in my little hole, I think.
I have this thing where I love resistance. I think it's actually very fun. I've had to learn to love it. And I think that that's the space where we find this part of ourselves that we never knew was possible. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like, because it can be so scary stepping out of that space and having to speak or mm-hmm. having to share whatever it is. But that resistance is literally it can be one of the greatest places to step into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Courage over comfort, right?
Courage over comfort.
Can't have both.
I think proving people wrong too. That's always been a good one. I'm just gonna say it. When someone thinks you can do something,
I'm not gonna disagree with you on that. I do think it's pretty fun where you just know that you can do it,
right?
Yeah. Well, that was to all the people that told us this business model of yours is kind of cute, but you'll never grow it, you'll never scale it, you'll never be profitable. Good luck, And we were like, well, hold my beer.
Yeah. So I don't understand, what part of it did they not think would work?
The cost of shipping things across the country, the centralized manufacturing model was traditionally how you were able to create the highest profit. And it does make sense. What our model would be more profitable if we were in one location, but that's not the reason we're doing it. And I think that business in general has moved more towards a purpose driven, that helping others and it being a self-fulfilling cycle is a better model. And that's what we've been able to find in our business as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I agree. Like a couple of things I want to touch on. First of all, is we have in this community, we have this thing every Tuesday where it's you go do the difficult. Like, what is the difficult thing that you're going to do this week? You know, and implement it. Don't just talk about it, but freaking step into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then share on social media. What is the difficult thing you're going to do? Because I think that so often we don't hold ourselves accountable. We talk about it. It's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people that I've taken down into the Grand Canyon where they've wanted to make these major shifts in their life. And they're like, but I just can't. And that voice in our head can really do a lot of sabotage, self-sabotage, a lot of disservice to us, because it will tear us down and make us believe that we cannot do something, when in reality, we 100% can. We can do every difficult. And when we do it, we can do it the next time, the next time, the next time. That said, so that's the one thing I wanted to touch on with you. But then the other thing was, when it comes to this business model, I think that I have found that people in general are not only wanting to live a more purpose-driven life, but they're wanting to buy more purpose-driven products. I will buy a more purpose-driven product over just the norm every single time. Tell me the story behind the product, and I will buy that product, especially if I relate to that story.
Right, exactly. I mean, it is interesting that we are inundated with information, stories on our cell phones and just inundated with it, but we don't ask for those same things behind our products and the things that we're buying. So really it's that storytelling and being able to really know where our product comes from that is so important, which is why when you go throughout one of our handbags, you can really see all the people that go into it, not only from the remote riveter that makes the textile pieces, but the American jobs that we're creating too. Everyone has a riveter number. It's in our company, it's almost as important as your first and last name. You have a riveter number, and it's about taking ownership of the work you're doing, because we know that this opportunity wasn't given to us. We had to work for it. And that's the reason why you stamp your riveter number and really own everything that you do.
Have you read Kendra Hall's book, Stories That Stick?
I've heard it. I have not.
I highly suggest that you
have to do that.
Yeah. That's for everybody, because Kendra Hall, she grew up in the Midwest. I believe I could be completely mistaken here, but I'm pretty sure she's more of a smaller town kind of girl too, like very grounded in her values and what she believes in. And she is a storyteller, and she gets up on stage and she talks about the stories that, not only the stories that we share through business, but the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that we live in every single day. And I used to be told when I was younger that, Sarah, your stories are too long, or get to the point, or blah, blah, blah. And I think that we miss the details in the story if we go so fast through what is really important, which are the details, right? Which ultimately is what's making up your product. Like every little detail in your product has a story. And that product is created by the stories, not only of those moments where the people are making them, but also the story of the person that's making the product. Makes sense? So that's why it's so
we're
cool.
intricately so linked to, and that's, I think, such a great representation of our product, is that we're all a chapter in the story, and and you can learn something from another person, and that's what entrepreneurs, I think, do best, is they can hear how someone else did it, and it doesn't have to be done in the exact same way, but you can learn so much from that, and you can turn it around and be able to implement it in your own life. And so our handbags are really stories being told, that you can relate to, and also be able to turn around and put it back out into the world with your own spin.
Freaking love it. And her whole story behind her Spanx, right? And then she didn't even tell anybody for the longest time. She went for years, I believe it was, before she even told anybody what she was doing. Wanted to hold that story so close to herself and then share it, right? Like, yes, this is what I'm working on. And I do think that so often we also do share some of the things that we should keep a little bit closer to our heart of our accomplishments or whatever they are. And then when it's time, put it out there, and put it out there hard, just like you all did. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible.
I think for us also, it's bridging the generations. One of my favorite generations is the World War II generation, just because it was such a pivotal time, not only for our country, but also for women who had to leave did on their own accord, leave a very an environment that was imposed on them really by culture. And they had to step outside of that in a time where it was, rare to even wear pants, to go in and wear overalls and actually, work on the war effort. So being able to hear some of those stories from original Rosies is some of my favorite times in growing this business. And they talk so, like nonchalant about it. And it's like, wow, you're kidding me. Like you did so much for our country, and you were able to do so much for women's work too. And it's those stories that I think that need to be told and not forgotten.
Yeah. And that's why it was so important to us when we named the company after Rosie the Riveter, that we knew it was grounded in his history. We knew it was grounded in a military connection, but we also wanted to be something so much larger, and everything that she stood for and that generation stood up and did. We wanted to not only, do ourselves because we were ready to do our part, but we want to teach that to our daughters and to our sons and to the next generation. So it's this kind of long line of strong, empowered women doing their part for what the world needs of them right now.
I think that one of the things I heard most about Rosie Riveter was so surprising to me is they did a lot of like, do you want to make more money? Do you want to be able to have your own things in a time where you didn't have your own money? And the number one thing that made the biggest difference of getting them into factories was you're part of the war effort. You're at home, but you're actually, women made most of the machinery that went into the war and helped win that too. And so it's really about standing up and being there for your community, for your country, which is really important to Cameron and I, and also being able to put those values forward to our children.
You're both incredible. And I'm just honored and grateful to be having this conversation with you because, thank you for stepping in and creating your own story from all of this as well, because it's just so cool. It's so cool. Every damn day I'm on a plane, every time I'm on a plane or anything, I meet super cool people. It's all I keep saying is, I love cool people. I love cool people. I love people that step out. I love people that take the chance. I love people that do the difficult. I was on a flight a couple days ago and I couldn't get my piece of luggage up on top. And some guy came out of nowhere and he's like, let me help you. And he pushes stuff over and puts that piece of luggage up. And I looked at him and I just pat him on the back. I'm like, I just love good people. Like I love, and that just right there, like that story right there, right? It's like, just putting good in the world and making a difference. And
especially on planes when people are usually very angry. So it just makes you feel even better. Right? I'm definitely a person on a plane that I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to sit next to a talker. But you meet the coolest people on planes.
You meet the coolest people. And I think that that's something to just be said as well. It's like when we can put ourselves out there, which is exactly what you both did. And kudos to the both of you. And you went on national TV on one of the scariest shows, by the way, like, right. I mean, I look at Shark Tank. I'm like, dang, that's like, you're putting yourself in there. I paddle with sharks, but I don't know if I jump into that. I would. You are really blazing trails for so many people, which is so, so cool. So thank you.
Yeah. I do hope that through it all, someone looks at this and says, I can do it too. I remember what kind of set my pace for business is in college. I went through a kind of like a mini Shark Tank and fortunately won it with a really random business model. And the guy that said, I'd love to advise you through this. And he sat me down at Perkins and said, I don't want anything out of this other than you do this in the future for somebody else that's growing. And, as a young woman that, hadn't had much perspective from life, be my first experience with business really set my pace for how businesses should interact with the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I was going to ask you actually, what is one of the things that are the lessons or anything that you're given? You've given the one, so thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So I hope that Scott sees the business and there is other young women that can see that they can do it too.
Yeah,
that's my one hope for our business model.
That's awesome. What about you, Cameron?
It's not always going to work out the way that you wanted to, but everything happens for a reason, right? So like I had this whole path and really I've found something that is far more fulfilling than I think I could have ever concocted up by myself. So lean into that idea of transition and change and that discomfort that comes with an evolving and changing environment, because you're really going to find the best version of yourself.
I 100% agree. Or revolving, changing life, like
Right.
just whatever comes your way. I mean, I was graduated as a teacher at UW-Madison, and now I'm doing the work that I am, guiding people through the wild and helping people through their lives and teaching in a very different way, or standing on stage. And so it's very different. And yet it comes from that same core space. So thank you to the both of you for being here. I truly appreciate it. We're going to put all of your assets and everything in so everybody can find your bags, go buy your bags, go do the things, reach out to social media, share everything, and let's keep this ripple going, because that's what we're here for. So thank you to the both of you for being here.
Thanks so much for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.